The scream beneath the alien waves. Nolan was alone on the rocky edge of Tyleros Prime, a planet far from Earth. The sky above was deep purple, filled with two suns and clouds that moved like slow animals. He was fixing a broken tower that sent weather data back to the human base. It was supposed to be a quiet job, 3 weeks of repairs, then back home. The waves below crashed against the cliffs, glowing with strange blue light. The ocean here was not like Earth's. It hissed, steamed, and sometimes whispered. The locals called it the Whispering Deep. They said no one should go near it. They said it was cursed. But Nolan didn't believe in curses. He believed in tools, machines, and hard work. He wiped sweat from his forehead and checked the tower's energy core. Just a few more adjustments. Then he heard it. A scream. Sharp, not human, but not fully alien either. It came from the sea. Nolan froze. The scream came again, louder, desperate. It was a voice. Someone was drowning. He looked over the cliff. Far below, he saw something moving in the waves. A shape, a body, a girl. She was struggling, arms flailing, going under. His heart jumped. No time to think. Nolan dropped his tools, tore off his jacket, and ran. He took the narrow path down the cliff, rocks cutting his hands as he slid. The ocean spray burned his skin like tiny sparks. But he didn't stop. He reached the edge of the water. The girl was farther out now, sinking. Her fur shimmered silver. Her tail floated behind her like smoke. She was Vulpine, one of the fox-like aliens that lived in sky trees and rarely came near the sea. She was drowning, and no one was coming to save her. So Nolan jumped. The water hit like ice and fire at the same time. It stung his eyes and pulled at his arms. It tasted of metal and rot, but he kicked forward, reaching for her. The ocean fought back. Glowing tendrils swam near him, snake-like things with wide yellow eyes. He dodged one, then another. One wrapped around his leg, but he tore it off. His lungs burned. There, her hand. He grabbed it. She was unconscious now, her head underwater. Her body was limp. Nolan wrapped his arm around her and swam back. Each kick was harder than the last. The sea seemed to grow thicker, like jelly. But finally, his hand touched rock. He pulled them both onto a small ledge, coughing, gasping for breath. The girl was still. Nolan turned her gently. Her chest wasn't moving. He started pressing on it. Hard, steady pushes. 1, 2, 3. She coughed. She gasped. Her eyes opened, bright, golden, glowing. She stared at him, confused and scared. Her claws shot up and scratched his arm. He didn't pull back. "You're safe," he whispered, breathing hard. "You're okay?" Her mouth moved. She said something in her own language. A whisper. It sounded like a name. Or a vow. Then her eyes closed again. Nolan held her close, not sure what to do next. She was alive, but just barely. A few minutes. Later, a scout drone from the base found them. It sent a signal. Help arrived quickly. The med team lifted her onto a hoverbed. They asked Nolan what happened. "She was drowning," he said. "I saved her." But one of the alien locals looked at the girl and shook his head. "There is no Vulpine girl who lives near here," he said. "This cannot be." Nolan didn't understand. "But she's real. I saw her. I pulled her from the sea." "Then you should not have," the alien said. "If she was in the water, it was meant to be." Those words stayed in Nolan's mind as the med team patched up his arm. The scratch from the girl had left a strange mark, thin glowing lines across his skin. They pulsed like a soft heartbeat. Nolan sat alone that night watching the ocean. The waves were quiet now. No screams. No signs of life. But something had changed. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know why she had been in the water. But deep down he felt one thing clearly. His life had just been pulled into something far bigger than he could understand. and the scream beneath the alien waves was only the beginning. The girl who should not exist. Nolan woke up the next morning with a strange pain in his arm. Not the sharp kind from an injury, but something deeper, like heat just under his skin. He rolled up his sleeve and stared at the mark the Vulpine Girl had scratched into him. It was glowing faintly now. 3 thin lines curved like waves pulsing slowly with golden light. He rubbed it. It didn't hurt. It didn't fade. And it wasn't just a wound. It felt alive. The medical unit had cleared him the night before. Just rest, they said. Your body is fine. But nothing about this felt fine. He had asked about the Vulpine Girl. Where was she? Was she safe? The doctors had looked at each other, silent. There was no Vulpine Girl brought in. One of them finally said, Your drone signal showed only you. Nolan blinked. What? She was right next to me. I pulled her out. You saw her. But the medic shook his head. You were alone when we arrived. Confused and angry, Nolan went to the local Vulpine elders. The sky-dwelling fox-like aliens rarely spoke to humans, but Tyloros Prime had a peace pact. He asked about her, described her eyes, her silver fur, the soft glow in her skin. The oldest elder listened, her ears twitching slightly. Then she whispered, That girl cannot be. Nolan leaned closer. What do you mean? The elder looked at the sea, her voice thin. You have seen a ghost, or something worse. She was never meant to be saved. She was alive, Nolan insisted. I touched her. She breathed. She scratched me. The elder closed her eyes. Then you have invited something old, something our people buried beneath the waves a long time ago. Nolan didn't sleep that night. The next day, his tools stopped working. The machines around his camp flickered and died. Strange symbols appeared on the screens, symbols he couldn't read. But when he looked at his arm again, something terrifying happened. The symbols on the screens matched the marks glowing in his skin. He backed away slowly. The air felt thicker, heavy, like something was watching him. He grabbed a scanner and checked the cliffside where he had rescued her. The ocean was quiet now. No voices, no movement. But his scanner blinked wildly. Energy levels off the charts, something deep below. He looked down into the whispering deep. Then a voice echoed behind him. You shouldn't have come back. Turned. She was standing there, the Vulpine Girl, alive, but different. Her eyes glowed brighter now. Her fur shimmered in a way he had never seen. She didn't look wounded. She looked powerful. Nolan stepped back. You're real. I knew it. She tilted her head. You saved me. That was not supposed to happen. Why not? He asked. Because I was being erased, she said. By my own people. Nolan felt a chill. They tried to kill you? She nodded. I broke a law written in the stars. I carry knowledge my kind wanted forgotten. Nolan's voice dropped. Then what happens now? She stepped closer. You touched me. You pulled me from the sea. Now you're marked. Our fates are tied. He stared at her in silence. I'm Nolan, he finally said. I am Layari, she answered, her voice like music and warning at the same time. And they will come for you soon. Nolan swallowed. Why? Because I bonded to you when you pulled me from death, she said. And in Vulpine law, that makes you my chosen. His breath caught. Wait, what does that mean? You are no longer just a man, she said. You are now part of a royal bloodline they thought was gone. But I'm human. That's why they'll kill you. Thunder rolled in the distance, not from the sky, but from beneath the sea. Nolan looked down again. Something dark was moving in the water. When he turned back, Layari was already walking away, back into the mist, her silver tail vanishing like smoke. But her voice stayed in his head. Run, human. Run before the stars rise. Nolan didn't move. He stood on the cliff's edge, heart pounding, staring at the ocean. This wasn't just a rescue. He had triggered something ancient. And now, the hunt had begun. Whispers in the mist. The sky over Tyleros Prime had changed. What was once soft purple with floating clouds had now turned darker, heavier, like it carried a secret. The sun still hung above, but their warmth felt distant, like something old and dangerous had awakened, and the world was holding its breath. Nolan walked alone through the narrow cliff paths, his mind storming with thoughts. Layari's words echoed in his head again and again. "You are my chosen, and they will come for you soon." It didn't feel real. None of this felt real. Just a week ago, he was a systems tech doing maintenance on a remote planet. Now he was bonded to a Vulpine exile with glowing eyes, hunted by an empire he barely understood. The mark on his arm had not faded. In fact, it had grown. New lines were spreading across his skin, forming symbols he couldn't read. Sometimes they pulsed softly like they were breathing, and sometimes he could hear them. Not voices exactly. More like thoughts. Run. Hide. Remember. He didn't know what they meant, but he knew the words weren't his. On the third night after seeing Layari, Nolan awoke to a strange sound. Not an alarm. Not wind. A voice. Soft. Whispering. It came from the edge of the cliff, outside his shelter. He got up, grabbed his lightstick, and stepped out. The air was thick with white mist. It moved strangely as if it had a mind of its own. His shelter's motion sensors beeped weakly, then went dark. Nolan stepped forward. "Who's there?" No answer. Just mist. Then something took shape ahead. A figure. Small, slim, with glowing eyes. Layari, but something about her was different now. She seemed less frightened, more ancient. Her fur shimmered in layers of silver and violet. Strange rings hovered gently around her wrists. She was dressed in robes that looked like they were made from threads of light. "You came back," Nolan said quietly. "I had to," she replied. "The mist speaks your name." "What does that mean?" "You are marked," she said. "You carry the ocean's call now. And the Watchers have seen it." Nolan frowned. "Watchers?" Layari nodded. "They live between life and death. They were once protectors. Now they are hunters. And they follow the scent of broken laws." "Because I saved you?" "Because I survived," she corrected. They walked together down a quiet path through the cliffs, mist curling around their feet. The ground beneath seemed to hum. "Why did they try to erase you?" Nolan asked. Layari didn't answer for a long time. Finally, she whispered, "Because I carry the memory of the old bond. The time when humans and Vulpine were not enemies, but allies." Nolan stopped walking. "You mean, we worked together once?" "More than that," Layari said. "Your kind helped build our oldest cities, our first ships, but then came betrayal, war, silence." She pointed toward the sea. "Beneath, the whispering deep, lies the heart of the truth, and I am the last living link to it." Nolan felt the weight of her words. Everything he thought he knew about humans and aliens was a lie. "So what happens now?" he asked. Layari turned her eyes on him. They glowed like twin suns in the fog. "You must go into the ocean again," she said. "Deeper this time, to the trench of forgotten voices. It is the only place they won't follow." Nolan shook his head. "They? Who are they?" A sudden cry echoed through the mist. Sharp. Not human. Not animal. Layari's ears twitched. Her hand shot out and gripped Nolan's wrist. "They've found you." The mist around them began to move. Faster, sharper, like knives made of smoke. Dark shapes formed inside it. Eyes. Claws. Weapons. "Run," Layari whispered. But Nolan didn't move. Instead, he took a deep breath and stepped in front of her. "No. If they want me, they'll have to go through me first." A long silence followed. Then, to Nolan's shock, the mist froze, and from somewhere in the air, a voice spoke. He chooses the exile. Then he must face the trial. Before Nolan could ask what that meant, the ground beneath him cracked and the cliff gave way. He fell. Layari screamed his name, reaching out, but it was too late. Nolan plunged into darkness, but instead of hitting water, he hit light, and then everything disappeared. He woke up lying on a stone platform surrounded by glowing walls. He wasn't drowning. He wasn't alone. Standing above him were three massive figures, tall, hooded, with eyes like burning moons. They looked down at him. "You touched what was forbidden," one of them said. "Now you must remember who you really are." Nolan's heart pounded, because something inside him already knew, and it was waking up, hunted by her own. Nolan stood frozen under the gaze of the three towering beings. Their cloaks rippled though there was no wind. Their faces were hidden, but their eyes, glowing orbs of pale fire, burned through the air like truth itself. They surrounded him in a wide, circular chamber deep beneath the ocean. The walls were made of crystal, humming with soft blue light. Above him floated symbols, ancient and alive. They twisted slowly, forming shapes that tugged at forgotten parts of Nolan's memory. "Why am I here?" Nolan whispered. The middle figure raised a long, slender hand. "You were marked by the drowned air. This is not by chance, it is by bond." Nolan's voice cracked. "I saved her." "No." The second figure said, its voice colder, deeper. "You awakened her." The third one stepped forward. "You must now carry her truth." Suddenly, Nolan felt a sharp heat in his chest. The mark on his arm glowed brighter, spreading like roots. It climbed up his shoulder, across his ribs toward his heart. Pain surged through him, hot, blinding, but not deadly. It was something else. It was transformation. When Nolan opened his eyes again, he was no longer in the glowing chamber. He was lying in a cave, soaked and shivering. He blinked against the dim light. Soft crystals lit the walls. Pools of glowing water bubbled gently nearby. Layari sat beside him, silent, her expression unreadable. "How long was I gone?" he asked. 3 days, she said. His breath caught. "What happened to me?" She looked at his arm. "You passed the first trial." Nolan sat up. His head throbbed, but he felt different, stronger, like something inside him had been unlocked. He looked down at his body. The symbols had changed again. They no longer looked like scars. They looked like armor. "What did they do to me?" "They showed you what was hidden," Layari said. "Your kind was not just part of our past. You were the key to our future." Nolan swallowed hard. "So what now?" Before she could answer, a loud boom shook the cave. Dust fell from the ceiling. The walls trembled. Nolan stood quickly. Layari's ears twitched. Her eyes narrowed. "They've found us," she said. A red light flashed across the cave entrance. Then came a voice, cold, mechanical, and full of hate. "By order of the High Vulpine Council, the exile Layari and the bonded human are to be captured immediately." Nolan's blood ran cold. Layari grabbed a curved blade from a rock shelf and tossed another one to Nolan. It hummed faintly in his grip. "Can we fight them?" he asked. "We have to," she said. "They won't listen. Not now. Not until blood is spilled." They ran through narrow tunnels as laser blasts struck the walls around them. Rocks exploded, sending fire and light across the darkness. Nolan caught glimpses of the attackers. Vulpine soldiers in black armor, moving with animal speed, their weapons shaped like crescent moons. "They're not holding back," he shouted. "They think you're a threat to the bloodline," Layari said. "You bonded with me. That makes you royal by the old laws." "I didn't mean to," he shouted back. "It doesn't matter," she said. "To them, it means rebellion." They burst into a wide cavern filled with blue mist. Layari raised her blade. The mist responded, swirling upward and forming a shield of wind and light. Nolan stood beside her, heart pounding. "We can't outrun them forever." "We don't need to," she said. "We just need to reach the deep gate." "What's the deep gate?" A door only bonded souls can open, she said. The cave behind them exploded. 3 Vulpine warriors charged in, their claws sharp, eyes wild. Nolan raised his blade. It glowed the same color as Layari's. The warriors hesitated, just for a second, then attacked. Nolan dodged the first swipe and struck back, surprising himself. The blade moved as if it knew what to do. He blocked a second attack and kicked the warrior back. Layari spun like lightning, cutting through the air. Her strikes were precise, graceful, brutal. Within seconds, 2 of the warriors were down. The last one dropped his weapon and stared at them. She has awakened it, he whispered. The old flame. Then he vanished into the mist. Nolan leaned against the wall, breathing hard. I thought I was just some engineer, he said. You're more than that now, Layari replied. You carry the bond. You carry the key. Nolan looked at her. And what about you? She turned toward a hidden path behind the cavern. I carry the memory, she said softly. But you carry the future. They ran again. As the mist swallowed them, the deep gate waited ahead. Behind them, the high Vulpine. Command issued a new order to all forces. Capture them alive if possible. If not, burn everything. The hunt had become a war. The heart below. The deep gate stood at the edge of a cliff inside the oldest part of the ocean cave. It wasn't made of metal or stone. It looked like it was formed from living coral and glowing veins, pulsing with a light that matched the symbols on Nolan's skin. Strange sea mist curled around it, thick and cold like breath from something sleeping beneath the world. Nolan stared at the gate in silence. This is it? He asked. Layari nodded. Her fur was wet and her robe torn, but her eyes were still bright and steady. The heart of our history lies beyond this gate, she said. No one has stepped through it in 1,000 years. Why me? Nolan asked, his voice low. Why not someone from your people? Because only a human can open it, she said. Only someone who carries the ancient bond. Nolan raised his hand. As he stepped forward, the gate responded. The coral shifted. The glowing lines flowed outward like rivers. Symbols rose into the air, surrounding him in circles of light. His mark burned, but it didn't hurt. It felt like something was welcoming him, recognizing him. You are not a visitor, the gate whispered in his mind. You are the echo of a promise. The gate opened, not with a noise, but with a deep breath, like the ocean itself inhaled. Layari walked in first. Nolan followed. The inside was vast. They stood on a path of floating stone, suspended above a black ocean that stretched in all directions. Above them, a sky of green stars shimmered and pulsed. Tall statues of both humans and Vulpine stood in rows on either side, silent guardians of forgotten history. And in the center of it all, surrounded by rings of ancient tech and crystal water, was a platform. On that platform, something waited. It was a throne, made of shattered glass and sea metal, and on it rested a small glowing sphere, beating like a heart. Layari dropped to her knees. That's it, she whispered. The heart below. Nolan stepped toward it slowly. Each step echoed like thunder. What is it? Memory, Layari said. Compressed knowledge, truth sealed by force. It holds everything that was erased. Nolan reached out. His fingers brushed the sphere. Instantly, everything changed. His mind exploded with light. He saw images flashing faster than thought. Humans and Vulpine working side by side, building great ships, exploring stars. He saw friendships, laughter, children born of both species, but then war, leaders screaming, betrayal, flames falling from the sky. He saw Vulpine kings wiping history clean, declaring humans as outsiders, dangerous, forbidden. And he saw Layari's bloodline, the last to remember. He saw himself, or someone who looked like him, standing beside a Vulpine queen in a city of glass towers, holding her hand, swearing a vow. You will not be forgotten, the old voice said. Nolan collapsed, gasping. The sphere stopped glowing. Layari caught him. What did you see? The truth, he whispered. We were never enemies. She nodded. But if the council learns that, they'll bury it again, he finished. A deep rumble shook the chamber. They turned and saw shadows entering through the gate. Vulpine soldiers. Dozens. Armed and furious. A tall figure stepped forward, wearing a silver crest shaped like a broken star. Layari, the figure said. Daughter of the Forbidden Line, you were warned. Nolan stood beside her, breathing hard. Don't, he said. You don't have to do this. The past doesn't have to be a threat. The commander snarled. You hold the heart and a human carries the bond. That is blasphemy. It's the truth, Layari said. Then truth dies with you. The soldiers raised their weapons. Nolan grabbed the sphere and held it up. It pulsed again, brighter this time. A wave of force exploded outward, knocking everyone to the ground. The statues lining the chamber began to move. Stone hands raised, eyes lit up. The guardians of the past had awakened. What's happening? Nolan shouted. Layari smiled faintly. The heart below has chosen its protectors. One of the stone guardians stepped forward, standing between Nolan and the advancing army. Its voice rumbled like thunder. You who seek to silence truth will now face it. The chamber shook again. Cracks split the ground. The black ocean below churned. The Vulpine army hesitated but then charged forward anyway. Nolan and Layari ran toward the exit, the sphere glowing in his hands. As they crossed the gate, Layari turned and whispered, Let them come. The truth is no longer buried. The gate sealed behind them. Above, the surface of the world waited, and so did war. War for the drowned air. The ocean spit them out like thunder. Nolan and Layari burst from the deep gate as it closed behind them, the glowing sphere of memory still warm in Nolan's hand. They lay gasping on the jagged shore, waves crashing around them. Above, the skies of Teloros Prime were no longer calm. Dark shapes moved in the clouds. Ships. Hundreds of them. Layari sat up slowly, her fur soaked and matted. Her eyes narrowed as she saw the sigils on the lead ships. High Command, she whispered. They've sent the Royal Fleet. Nolan pushed himself up. That's bad, right? She didn't answer. Instead, she stood and stared at the sky. The ocean wind caught her silver cloak, making it ripple like a flag. We have to move, she said, before they start glassing the surface. Glassing? Nolan asked. They'll burn everything, she said, to keep the truth buried. They ran. Across the cliffs, through the jagged ridges of volcanic rock, deeper into the wildlands. Nolan's body ached, but the mark on his skin, now fully formed across his chest and arms, seemed to give him energy. Each breath felt heavier, but more focused, like his body was changing to match the bond. They reached the high ridge of the western cliffs just as the first wave of fire fell from the sky. Blinding light tore across the ground behind them. Forests turned to ash. Rivers boiled. The Vulpine Empire was trying to erase them, again. But Layari was not running anymore. She stood firm. She looked down at the ocean one last time, then raised her hand. From the mists, shapes began to rise. Not ships, not soldiers. Beasts. Dozens of large ancient creatures, part sea, part shadow, rose from the waves and climbed the cliffs. Their eyes glowed the same color as Layari's. They moved with grace, but also anger. Nolan stepped back. What are they? The sea tribes, Layari said. The forgotten, the mutated, the exiled. My people once abandoned them, but I did not. The largest beast stopped in front of her. It bowed its head. Its skin was made of layered shells and glowing tendrils. Around its neck it wore rusted pieces of armor with human letters etched into it. Hope. You led them? Nolan asked. They remember the old ways, she said. They remember the bond. A rumble rose behind them. The royal fleet was landing. From the sky, drop pods crashed into the cliffs. Squads of Vulpine soldiers in gold and black armor marched out in tight rows, energy rifles ready, silent and deadly. Then came the voice, broadcasted across the entire ridge. You are surrounded. Surrender the human. Surrender the air. This is your last warning. Leia turned to Nolan. This is your choice now. We fight only if you stand with me. Nolan looked at her. Her eyes held fear, but also trust. He clenched the memory sphere in his hand. Its light grew stronger. We fight, he said. Leia smiled. The sea tribes roared and the war began. The clash was instant. Vulpine soldiers opened fire, beams of burning light tearing across the cliffs. The sea beasts charged, their thick armor deflecting shots as they crashed into the lines like living storms. Mist covered the battlefield, and from within it came claws, teeth, and blades. Nolan stayed close to Leia. His blade, now fully awakened, hummed with the same energy as the sphere. He fought, not like a soldier but like someone who had trained in dreams. The bond guided his hand. He blocked. He struck. He moved faster than ever before. He wasn't human anymore. Not fully. He was something new. Leia danced through the battlefield, like wind and fire. Each strike from her staff sent shockwaves. Her voice, when she spoke the old language, made the enemy freeze. Some even dropped their weapons, recognizing her as the true heir. But the commander did not. From above, a massive Vulpine stepped onto the ridge. Black armor, a crown of sharp metal, a sword longer than Nolan was tall. You are not the heir, the commander growled. You are a mistake. Leia stepped forward. Then correct me, she said. If you can, he charged. They clashed with a force that cracked the cliffside. Leia held her own, but barely. The commander was stronger, heavier, trained from birth. Nolan saw her falter. Without thinking, he threw himself into the fight. His blade met the commander's sword. The impact shook the air. The commander laughed. You think a human can defeat me? I'm not just human, Nolan said. Then he pressed his palm, marked with the full bond, against the commander's chest. The memory sphere exploded in light, and everything stopped. When the light faded, the battlefield was silent. The commander lay on the ground, unmoving. His armor cracked, his weapon broken. The Vulpine soldiers stood frozen, staring at the two figures before them, Leia and Nolan, standing together, shining with the light of the heart below. Then, slowly, one by one, the soldiers dropped to their knees, not in defeat, in recognition. Long live the bond, one of them said. Long live the heir, said another. Nolan looked at Leia. What now? He asked. She took his hand. Now, she said softly, we rewrite everything. The echo of two hearts. The battlefield was quiet now. Ashes floated gently through the air, carried by the wind across broken cliffs and cracked stone. The war drums had stopped. The screams had ended. Only the sound of the ocean remained, steady, ancient, watching. Nolan stood at the edge of the cliff, his body aching, his skin glowing faintly with the mark of the bond. Beside him, Leia watched the sea, her silver fur stained with battle and memory. Below them, hundreds of Vulpine soldiers knelt in silence, not in fear, in respect. A line had been crossed, a truth uncovered that could never be hidden again. For generations, the Vulpine High Council had erased the bond between their people and humans. They had destroyed records, hunted bloodlines, silenced those who remembered. But Leia had survived, and Nolan had changed everything. A signal flared in the sky, bright and golden, the symbol of surrender. The remaining royal ships hovered silently, unsure, leaderless. Many began to withdraw. Others simply waited. Leia turned to Nolan. The heart below is safe, she said. The memory has returned. They can't hide it anymore. But what happens now? Nolan asked. She hesitated. Now comes choice, she said. Peace, or more war. Truth, or silence. And they will look to us. Nolan shook his head. I'm not a leader. But you are, Layari said. Not because you were chosen, but because you chose. When everyone else followed fear, you followed compassion. He looked out across the battlefield. Sea beasts were helping the wounded. Vulpine soldiers stood beside creatures they once hunted. The mist tribes were emerging from the deep trenches, eyes wide with wonder. Change was already happening. They'll never accept me, Nolan whispered. I'm not one of them. Layari stepped closer. Her hand touched his. Then show them you don't have to be one of them to stand beside them. In the days that followed, word spread fast, not just on Tyleros Prime, but across nearby systems. Transmissions leaked. Images of Nolan standing, side by side with Layari, the memory sphere shining between them. The forbidden history became public. Old wounds reopened. Old questions returned. On some planets, humans and Vulpine came together for the first time in years. On others, riots broke out, led by those who still clung to lies. Nolan and Layari moved quietly during this time. They didn't sit on thrones or give speeches. Instead, they traveled together, tribe to tribe, camp to city, listening to stories, answering questions, facing hate, and offering something new, hope. In a sea village once exiled from Vulpine society, Layari stood before the crowd and told her story. Not as a warrior, not as an heir, but as someone who survived. Nolan stood behind her, silent, but never far. I'm not perfect, Layari said, but I carry the truth, and truth belongs to everyone, not just the royal bloodline, not just the council, and not just the strong. It belongs to the lost, the hunted, the unheard. The crowd listened, and slowly. They clapped. But peace is never easy. One night, Layari and Nolan were called to a hidden temple, an ancient place buried beneath the sea cliffs. Inside waited the last surviving High Seer of the Vulpine. She looked old enough to remember the first stars. You have changed the rhythm, she told them, and the rhythm will fight back. We know, Layari said. The old blood will not rest, the seer warned. They will build armies in the dark. They will wait. And when they will strike at the bond. Nolan stepped forward. Then we'll protect it. The seer nodded. Not with blades, she said, with memory. She gave them a crystal, deep blue, filled with moving stars. Place this in the core of the heart below, she whispered. It will sing forever, even if you fall. They returned to the ocean cave. The gate opened for them, silent, gentle. They walked the same stone path, past the statues, past the floating lights. In the center, the platform waited. The heart below still beat softly, glowing with new colors now. Nolan placed the crystal inside it. The chamber shook. But it was not danger. It was life. A new symbol formed in the air, a mixture of human script and Vulpine markings. Layari touched it with her hand. And the heart below sang in voices old and new. It told stories of friendship, of sacrifice, of unity. It carried Layari's name. It carried Nolan's touch. It would echo forever across the stars. When they left the chamber, a new dawn had broken above the cliffs. The sky was gold, and peace had a voice again. Years later, a child stood at the edge of the sea listening to the waves. Is it true? The child asked. A human and a Vulpine changed the world? A teacher smiled. Yes, she said. They dove into the whispering deep and came back with the truth. What happened to them? The teacher pointed to the ocean. They're still out there, she said. Guardians of memory, protectors of the bond. And if you ever find yourself lost, just listen closely. The child tilted their head, and from the waves, they heard it. 2 heartbeats, rising together. An echo that would never fade. End of story.